Well, thank you very much, Professor. I will not have any questions accepted now. We can do this after the next presentation. Now, last but not least, recycling is at the end of the value chain or at the beginning, depending on your point of view. We are very glad to welcome Jürgen Ephan. He's Managing Director of Remondis. And I think I do not have to introduce Remondis to any of you. They are a leading company when it comes to collecting, recycling, processing a lot of waste materials of different kinds. And you also look into new technologies regarding recycling. He will now tell us something about the significance of chemical recycling from the point of view of the recycling industry for about 10 minutes. And then we have time to discuss the presentations of Mr. Stapf and Mr. Ephan. Mr. Pinkepunk, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, hello to all of you on my part as well. I'm Jürgen Ephan, Managing Director of Remondis Recycling. And among other things, I'm also in charge of chemical recycling. The title of my presentation at the BASF Dialog Forum is Significance of Chemical Recycling from the Point of View of the Recycling Industry. This shows an overview in a circle diagram, all the volume of plastic waste recycled in Germany in 2019. These were the results published on the basis of a study. In 2019, we had about 6.3 million tons of plastic waste, 930,000 tons post-industrial waste. This is the blue part of the circle. Post-industrial waste is the waste of plastic producers and plastic processes, and it was used as a new material almost at 100%, which economically and ecologically speaking makes good sense. And in 2019, we had 5.3 million tons of post-consumer waste. This is the big green part of the circle that we will focus on. Post-consumer plastic waste include commercial waste, electronic waste, shredder waste, and packaging waste. At the top, you see the 5.3 million tons of plastic waste, which is being recycled. At the bottom right, you see the 2 million tons that are being recycled mechanically, i.e. 38% of all post-consumer plastic waste volumes. And I guess there will be further measures, and there need to be further measures to increase this share. For example, by the, as we heard before, design for recycling, such as producing packaging material in a smarter way. Of course, politically speaking, we have to make sure that the recyclates are used in the plastics industry because we need an incentive for the economy. The quota for the minimum use of recyclates in general when producing new products is a must, definitely. But we have 3.3 million tons of post-consumer waste, which is used energetically. You see this in the red area, 2019, 61%. 2.1 million tons are being incinerated. Most of this goes into waste incineration plants, and 1.13 million tons in RDF or SRF, be it in power plants or cement plants as a substitute for fuels. So in case of mixed plastic fractions, which are very contaminated and have a bad odor, and mechanically compounds multi-layer materials, and we have big shredders and other products. How can we tap this potential in the medium term? In the context of mechanical recycling, that is the 2 million tons per year, with chemical recycling and a combination of different technologies and methods, we can create a more attractive plastic cycle. And based on the current economic and ecological developments, we see a potential of Next slide, please. More than 1 million ton in the midterm for Germany for the very relevant streams of material that is packaging waste and also commercial waste, and maybe other mixed plastic fractions that could be recycled when using chemical recycling methods. Here, and this is very, very important to me, let me point out that this volume could also be created as a CO2 equivalent, which could be saved and be fed back into the cycle. A sustainable circular economy for plastic recycling means that carbon, in the long run, that is over many, many cycles, will stay in this cycle. Let's take a look at the European Waste Framework Directive, which is simple and can be explained simply. It's a pyramid upside down, where we have prevention, preparing for reuse, recycling, other recovery and disposal. This European directive does not differentiate between mechanical and chemical recycling, but recycling refers to any recycling process where substances or products are used for the original or other purposes. So at European level, there is a very open attitude when it comes to different technologies. And based on this, we'd like to make a suggestion for including chemical recycling into the waste hierarchy. Here you see what goes for chemical and mechanical recycling. We heard this before today. Mechanical recycling is always preferable to chemical recycling. The same is planned for the Dutch waste schedule for the future. Chemical recycling is supposed to focus on the volumes which can hardly be or cannot be recycled mechanically. I personally think, despite all the possible technological developments, not all plastic waste can be recycled mechanically. Of course, we do not want to slow down the development. On the contrary, we will, of course, intensely support this development. But when it comes to the potential of 3.3 million tons per year, in order to tap this potential, we have to develop mechanical and chemical recycling. And where it is reasonable, we heard this before, we have to combine the two methods. But the risks and opportunities of chemical plastic recycling have to be looked at. We heard about the science, industry, NGOs, and so on, and we have to have a very open-minded discussion here. Now, allow me to briefly mention the following. In Germany, people are not open-minded when it comes to discussing this plastic recycling scheme. This is due to the fact that we still have an ongoing discussion at European level, I think. Now, brief conclusion. The importance of chemical plastics recycling for the recycling industry is manifold, diverse, and very complex. So material streams are to be used in a reasonable and environmentally conscious way, and we want to keep the carbon in the circulation for as long as possible. And along the value chain of plastic cycling, we want to have chemical recycling as a complementary element to mechanical recycling. And thus we want to offer a reasonable solution with this combination, and we want to close raw material loops. And of course, the consumption and dependence of fossil resources are supposed to be reduced, because everything will remain in the cycle because of recycling. Now, for the benefit of the environment and for the future, in analogy to the mission of our company, we want to have a very open-minded discussion, because only a smart combination of mechanical and chemical recycling will enable us to meet our ambitious recycling goals.